I hope this works this time. I deeply apologize, everyone. My computer decided to just shut off on me. That's the bullshit reality of having technical issues. So hopefully we can have everyone come back. Otherwise, that would suck if this were to happen again a second time. But yes, BD Bonzi, hopefully we are back in action. I hope this works out well. That was quite stressful. I'm sorry, guys. That was not as planned. But let me just wait a few more minutes and then we'll just go into the main topic of tonight's stream. But I'm gonna try to hopefully this doesn't, you know, drop again, because I really hate when these damn computers give you this kind of nonsense. But Title Manishir says second time is a charm. Absolutely. BD Bonzi says hands up for sure. Derek Holloman says we back. Hopefully. Yeah, it was just one of those things, man. Like, I'm literally sitting there talking to myself, and then I look up at my screen and realize that the chat or the stream was pretty much done. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And then out of nowhere, I got the beautiful blue screen of death. Good old Windows, man. But hopefully this will do well. Tito says, no worries, dude. We were vibing in the chat. And you know what was even worse is that I was hoping that my settings would stay the same, and then eventually when I decided to restart the stream, out of nowhere I had to retype like everything, and that sucked. So that took me about freaking 10 minutes or maybe less trying to get this shit across. But hopefully we'll get everyone back in on board. Wilfredo Diaz says hello again, Shark, and everybody here again tonight. Thank you guys for coming back. I appreciate it. Alan Balcom says hell yeah, welcome back. Thank you. Benedict says what up. Thank you guys. What up to you too as well. Ah, man, I already lost like freaking 30 minutes of this bullshit, but we'll wait like a few more minutes and then we'll get into it. Hopefully this will be beneficial. Mr. Madgus says, I thought Shark didn't love me no more. No way, dude. I'm all about love. Nah, man, I would never leave you guys like that. These are one of those things where you have to prepare for all sorts of outcomes, and I had an inkling before I started the stream that something was going to happen, and then it just eventually did. So let's see, it's 9:02 in the east here, so we'll wait till 9:05 and then I'm just going to get right into the stream. So whoever joins hopefully will join. If not, then they can watch the replay. If so the computer happens to shut off, then we will definitely resume again tomorrow, but I'm going to go as far as I can, hoping that nothing goes wrong this time around. What up, Flaming Crow? How's it going? Thank you so much for joining. Checkpoint Alpha, what's up? Joe Barrett says, yo, Shark, I'm back. Stupid technical difficulties are a pain, bro. Glad stream is running. Me too, man. It was so annoying because everything looked fine on my end on the other side of the screen, and then I looked at the YouTube setting, and then it had the whole buffering, and I was just like, what the hell? And then my mouse stopped working, and I was like, this is not good. And then I tried clicking a few times. I got like that Windows noise, and then I got the blue screen of death, and I was like, all right, well, yeah, let's try to get the stream back on roll. Let's hit that like button, as Title Manishir says, and Alan Balcom definitely says hit the like button as well. Oh man, that was whack. I was on a roll too, man. So disappointed. I hate when things like that happen. All right. Yeah, so we'll give it 2 more minutes and then we'll start. Russell Terrell says, I'm back. Yes, sir. Hopefully, as they say, second time. No, they say third time's the charm, but Timothy James, what's up? Thank you so much for joining. Russell, but yeah, Russell, hopefully we have no issues second time around, because there's a lot of vehicles I need to talk about tonight, and I cannot afford to split up the stream in 2 halves, because that would be bullshit. But I like how Timothy James says, what up, SHARKNEWZ? That's awesome. Let's hope everything else is going well. Vil the Great, how's it going? Thank you so much for joining. Alright, we're gonna start in about 1 more minute. First of all, shout out to everybody who came back on short notice, so thank you guys, I appreciate that. We lost like 30 minutes, but we're gonna zoom through this now because I lost 30 minutes of the stream, and time is essential here in the SHARKNEWZ boat, or the waters of SHARKNEWZ. Mr. Madga says no problem, we can go to 1 or 2. Roland Mac says okay, we back. Hell yeah. What time is it? All right, so let's start now because we lost a lot of time. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the GI Joe classified vehicles that may potentially become Pulse exclusives. Originally, I had it listed as retail vehicles, but I believe retail is not a thing anymore just because people are pre-ordering the hell out of their figures, and Targets and Walmarts are sucking ass right now. They're not really, you know, at least mine aren't showing any GI Joe classified figures, so there's no point of me utilizing the word retail. So if it's like exclusives, we can even say Amazon exclusives or, you know, Pulse exclusives or whatever online retailers. But I do want to emphasize that this list does not include like additional add-ons to vehicles like the HMS or MMS and these other stuff, which we'll talk about in another live stream if interested. But these will basically be considered vehicles that are small enough to be ordered online, but not big enough to be HASLABs. Because in the last live stream we did talk about HASLABs and the bigger vehicles, and a lot of them, at least we can say about 45% of them, were ideal vehicles to come out in HASLAB form. However, we know that with the RAM cycles and other smaller scale vehicles that it is a possibility that we could have a slightly decent sized vehicles come out as Pulse exclusives, but not necessarily become HASLABs. So there was one vehicle that I forgot to mention in last week's live stream, and that's going to be the Avalanche. The Avalanche, this is going to go back to the HASLAB topic from last week because I forgot to include it. I don't know how I missed the Avalanche, but this vehicle does look really badass, and it's another one of my favorites for sure. But I have a feeling that they're not going to really utilize this vehicle just because we only have Snow Job at the moment, and they haven't really gave us any Arctic characters. You know, we still have like Cold Front, Wind Chilled, Sub-Zero. We don't even have Frostbite or Iceberg just yet. So because this vehicle is pretty huge, obviously it can definitely be incorporated as a HASLAB, but because we have literally no Arctic characters just yet aside from the Snow Serpent and Snow Job, I think this would be way too soon for the Joe team to kind of give it to collectors just now. So we'll just put this in the honorable mention list from last week, and then yeah. So but tonight's stream will be more about the smaller scaled vehicles. Vil the Great says Hasbro has been ridiculously quiet. Yes. So before my stream just got destroyed, the previous stream, I mentioned how the GI Joe team has literally done nothing, or not. I shouldn't say nothing, but they've been awfully quiet in the past month and a half ish, other than posting random GI Joe stuff on their socials, like the cartoon intros, or like choose your top 3 favorite characters and all that bullshit. But in terms of, you know, I'm sure they're waiting for us to provide, you know, because YOJO June is about less than 14 days away, so we're hitting that less than 2-week mark, and then with YOJO June coming out, we're definitely going to be probably get our asses kicked with pre-orders and some cool shit probably. If not, then that would suck, but hopefully we do get something really cool. So because of the things that's going on in the world right now, if the GI Joe team is playing it really smart, then you know, they're keeping it very low-key, very quiet about things that are going to be revealed, because usually by now, at least within the 2-week frame, we would have already had a bunch of leaks, but surprisingly we haven't gotten much. But yeah, maybe we might get some leaks next week, but as of right now, we haven't gotten anything, which is a shocker for YOJO June, because last year around this time we were getting like mad leaks about figures and prototypes and stuff, and right now we haven't really gotten much. So either the GI Joe team is doing a really good job at keeping it secret, or because of all the stuff that's going on in the world right now, especially with the tariffs and stuff, it's causing the Joe team to kind of hit a super panic mode. Because again, if this was last year or even the year prior, we would have already had leaks and rumors about the upcoming HasLab. They would have already teased something, but we haven't gotten anything yet. So, and we already talked about the HasLab situation last week, so we won't be getting into that topic tonight. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't know if I should say I'm excited for YOJO June, but I'm also like nervous, or kind of like, oh man, like I don't know what's going to happen, because you know, with the price increases and all that stuff, it seems like if something feels very off and iffy on the GI Joe brand side, unless they're literally holding everything low-key, and then during YOJO June they're just gonna bust out a bunch of pre-orders and renders, and that would be cool. But it seems like they could be postponing a lot of things or pushing back things, and who knows what's gonna happen. So let's go with the chat here. BD Bonzi says, what about the BET? Well, the BET is more of a, I guess you can say, build a something. Therefore, I guess we can use the BET as another topic for the stream, probably next week, I suppose. Flaming Crow says, I could probably count on one hand the figures I haven't pre-ordered. It's impossible to find the Joes in the wild where I live. Yeah, man. I mean, that's why I kind of gave up toy hunting at Targets and my Walmarts, because they don't I mean, well, Target would maybe have more than Walmart, but they're very, very late. As of right now, I have 0 figures in my Targets and Walmart. Walmart, I haven't seen anything in the radius of from here to like 45 minutes, checking like up to 4 different Walmarts. I haven't seen a single Joe in about a year. So that's why Target's a little bit more reliable. But then again, with Target, like I think the last wave I saw at Target was, aside from the Tiger Force, Tripwire, and Roadblock 2-pack, out of nowhere, Big Boa and Airborne and Techno Viper came on the shelves, and that was, you know, kind of like annoying. So, and I already had those figures in hand, so now I was like, oh man, like that kind of just ruined the excitement, but it is what it is. Checkpoint Alpha says Arctic Bat. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about the Arctic Bat figure. If they do this as a HasLab, I'm backing it because I need more Arctic figures, says Benedict. Iceberg says Vil the Great. Crimson Cobra Commander, welcome to the chat. I believe this is your first time here. Welcome, says I always consider Big Ben a cold character. Yeah, Big Ben can be an essential because he has the fur collar and all that stuff. So I think, yeah, Big Ben would be pretty cool. Let's see here. Russell Terrell says I haven't seen any ad spots from Hasbro about YOJO June. Yeah, usually within, so that's what I'm saying, like we're already on, this is Tuesday, right? So usually they are about a week or two in advance talking about YOJO June, but for the fact that, I mean, we're probably going to get an ad like next week or maybe within the next 3 days. But the fact that they haven't really said anything, again, it's very, very interesting. Crimson Cobra Commander says, does anyone think we are not getting a HasLab this year? That's, yeah, I mean, I guess we're going to figure it, we're going to find out in about a few weeks. Joss Ray says, Classified is just such a bummer to collect now. $31 a figure is not doable. Yeah, I mean, I personally said in my previous streams, even last year or the year prior, I was like $25 for me per figure is my limit. If the G.I. Joe Classified figures go up above $25, and this is excluding like exclusives or other, you know, 2-packs and whatever, like the standard solo figures, if they go up to $26, even up to $27 and $28, then I'm pretty much out by that point. And I kind of will have to play the waiting game. Could be because we have the ton of pipeline already, says Taito. Absolutely. Joss Ray says a HasLab plus a Tariffs would astronomical numbers like $500 HasLabs. That's, yeah, so as we discussed last week, the reason why we're probably not getting a HasLab this year is because Hasbro Pulse would have to charge us an additional buttload of money in order for them to regain their cost. But yeah, so anyways, so that is the Avalanche, which was our honorable mention. I forgot to mention last week, so we'll just put that here. But starting with figures that we could utilize, or vehicles that we already have in classified form. I'm going to quickly go over some of the vehicles that already came out. And when I was doing this list, I was kind of surprised because there are a decent amount of vehicles that are going to be made in classified form, but there's also not a lot, if that makes sense. Like, there's enough to stretch it out within the next 10 to 15 years, but depending if you exclude repaints, because on this list I didn't include repaints like Tiger Force and Night Force ram cycles and vehicles, but the first one we have here that they've released, and this is excluding Baroness's coil bike from Cobra Island. So the first one we have here is the ram cycle that came with Breaker, which was part of the Cobra Island set. My gripe about this vehicle is I don't think I don't remember if the tires were rubber. I think they were plastic tires, so I think that's kind of made it a bit like disappointing. However, I thought that the ram cycle was a pretty good start off to giving us classified vehicles, because the ram was utilized a lot in the cartoon and we'll see a lot of it in the comics as well. So giving us a motorcycle definitely kind of amped up the line, because it's like, okay, this was the great introduction to vehicles. And yeah, and I believe the ram cycle also didn't have the accommodation of the extra seat that the original O-ring version had, so I think that's kind of like a few points off. But nonetheless, the fact that, you know, it's a motorcycle, like the Joes really, you know, they need like some type of vehicle because a lot of them, they rode them in the cartoon and stuff, so very beneficial to have. So I thought this was a decent start to the Joe vehicles. And then the next one they gave us was the Flight Pod, aka the Trouble Bubble. This came with with Televiper, and there was also the Python Patrol version with Televiper. So this one was a pretty badass vehicle, and it's one of those things where, how do I explain it? It's like I'm glad that they gave this figure or this vehicle like with a character, because I'm not really sure how many people would buy this if this was like a standalone purchase, but this was an easy way to kind of give us like a lot of you know, like differentiate Cobra vehicles from the Joes. Let's see. HoloNet says 10 to 15 years. Yeah, so the reason why I say 10 to 15 years is because if you think about the amount of times or the time frame between Joe releases, let's say you release one vehicle every 3 months, although it's probably not realistic, but if you have one vehicle and then the following live stream event that the Joe team would do would end up becoming a variant, like a repaint, like a Tiger Force or Night Force or a Python Patrol version or something like that. Therefore, you have to add in the time frame of variants or like repaints into the factor, so that kind of spreads out the years. And then on top of that, you have to minus the dead weight, the dead months, which is like from November, December, January, so that's like 3 months off right there. And then February is really just reveals, and then it's not really until like around March all the way up to like San Diego Comic-Con is when the vehicles could be released. But again, it just depends on how fast they pump out vehicles. But again, if they do one vehicle per 3 months, then it could definitely last you about like 10 to 15 years for sure. So then the next vehicle, and the reason why I'm kind of rushing through this is because we have a lot to talk about, but the next vehicle was Serpentor's Air Chariot, which was a very pivotal vehicle for, of course, one of the coolest Cobra villains of all time, which was Serpentor. Now, Emily did mention in one of the previous live streams, like maybe a year or two ago, when this figure came out, she said if they were to ever create the Air Chariot, or if they were to ever re-release Serpentor, then most likely the Air Chariot would not be associated to that figure, just because in order to get the Air Chariot, you had to purchase the exclusive version. And I think it's a pretty good one. The detail definitely stepped up its game, and they did a pretty good job at releasing it. However, there are still quite a few collectors out there who haven't gotten their hands on it because it is pretty expensive in the aftermarket, and Serpentor is definitely one of the, I guess you can say, cooler figures in the classified, or at least in the Cobra line. So for them to release Serpentor without the Air Chariot is kind of like an insult and a slap to our faces, but it kind of makes sense because they want to have more bang for their buck. And there are other versions of Serpentor out there in terms of coloring and style designs, so chances are we could get a better version of Serpentor with more of a yelling face and probably like updated design or something a little more intense. Or they can do the Deke series or the GI Joe 2000s 2-pack, where it was more like black and dark green and gold, I guess. So yeah, there's definitely variants of Serpentor out there, but you know, so we're not really sure when they're going to re-release this Air Chariot, but for now, I guess the only way to get it is to get the exclusive version. And then the G.I. Joe team announced or revealed the Ferret, which the ATV, which came with the Ferret driver, which I thought was pretty cool. So this set I believe went for like what, $90 to $100, or was it 80 something? I don't remember. So the fact that they gave us the ATV, I thought that was pretty cool. There are other, I think, color schemes or variants of this ATV as well, but I just stuck with the traditional red and blue version, so expect us. And they did create the Tiger Force version of this one that came with wreckage, Tiger Force wreckage. So again, we know that there's going to be, so we know that the Joe team is capable of offering like the same vehicles, but within its like sub teams. So that's why I expect the vehicles to kind of be prolonged into the future, because they could easily give us, you know, the original version first, and then while we're anticipating for another vehicle, they could re-release the prior vehicle again, just in NIGHTFORCE colors or Python Patrol, or even just Tiger Force. Okay, let me catch up with the chat real quick. So Benedict says solid vehicle. Vildegrate says got 2 trouble bubbles. Flaming Crow says never had the original, had to get a trouble bubble. I mean, yeah, it's a good one to own for sure. Crimson Cobra Commander says there are many repaints of this vehicle. We will see it again. I agree. Alan says, didn't we get Baroness on the coil cycle first? Yeah, so I excluded the coil bike just because it looked a bit of a departure compared to the vehicles that we already had prior. Benedict says, classified might end, but moving forward, I think Joe will stay at 112 scale, just under a different branding. I mean, I don't know. I like, there's a small little inkling that I don't see the classified line lasting for more than another 8 to 10 years, and that's just me. There's something about it that's just like, it's rubbing me the wrong way, in the sense of the amount of time it's taking for them to make figures, the lack of communication and marketing, and obviously with all the stuff going on in the world, but with all the other, you know, Hasbro teams, you know, pumping out stuff, and the Joe team is really like taking their precious time. So I understand that we're about 5 years in to classified, but at this point, you know, but the thing about the Joe team is that even if they were to you know, slow down, they eventually come out of nowhere and like slap us all in the face. So then they pump out everything within like the last like 5 to 6 months out of nowhere. And then the next figure, or sorry, the next vehicle we're going to talk about is the Vamp, which I think the new updated version is probably a great so great job on Lenny for this one if he was part of it. I think the updates definitely made the Vamp look freaking awesome. It's one of those rare instances where the modern version definitely outweighs the old vintage version, but of course the vintage will always be iconic and popular. But the Vamp is a pure and perfect definition of what I call like a great balance of new and old, and just giving us like a bang for your buck kind of thing. So Benedict says Tiger Paw is awesome. Joe Barrett, welcome to the chat, says Hasbro needs to re-release the Ferret. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. A lot of these vehicles are just like they're in and out. Like they don't do like re-releases on Pulse and stuff, which I think is very odd and weird. Russell says we need a Skyhawk. Don't worry, we're getting there. Checkpoint Alpha says I would love to see them make Destro's Despoiler. We'll get to that too. Flaming Crow says both versions of the Ferret are great. Alan says so glad I got 2 Serpentors when they came out. Yeah, I mean, Serpentor is definitely a really great figure for sure. Vilda Great says fire emojis. Alan Balcom says, hey Russell, there are people that 3D print the Skyhawks. Benedict says, I want a NIGHTFORCE Vamp. That should be the surprise Walmart exclusive. Yeah, I mean, there's also the Mark II Vamp, which we'll talk about later, but even a NIGHTFORCE Vamp seems logical for them to do, because we've seen with the GIJOE team creating new things for the GIJOE line, and you know, with the tools already there, you know, it's kind of like open season to kind of just give us brand new things. Mr. Madga says Hasbro came out strong with this one. I 100% agree. Crimson says, if Marvel lasted for 20 years, G.I. Joe can last long, especially they dip into other series besides A Real American Hero. But the problem with that is a lot of the collectors, they want the A Real American Hero figures first. Like, sure, there will be people that will buy like Sigma 6 or Resolute or maybe Deke series figures, or even the like Spy Troops or Valor versus Venom, but essentially, because the age range of collectors for G.I. Joe are roughly from like 35 to like 55, I suppose, people are just getting anxious because I don't think people have like that much time to wait like another 10 years to get like all their main figures that the cartoon had. So but yeah, so the Vamp was, like I said, a great addition into the classified line. Beautiful. And then the next one we have is the Stinger, which I thought the Stinger was a well done reveal as well. We knew that when the Vamp came out that the Stinger wasn't too far behind. So another great modern update to a classic vehicle, which I thought was awesome. And plus it came with the Stinger driver, which I thought looked cool too, and I will be doing a video on that probably in the next day or two, so stay tuned. But again, this is another instance where they did a pretty good job at the Stinger. Let's see here. Mr. Madga says Hasbro came out strong. Oh, I read that one. Timothy James says NIGHTFORCE Vamp, interesting, nice concept. For sure, I agree. Okay, hold on. I'm just making sure the stream is good. Okay. Vil the Great says, don't understand why if they have the molds, they don't just, what? They don't just put out more vehicles. It's not like they won't sell. I think it's probably money-wise. I don't know. I think it's probably costing them a lot, because with Marvel Legends, right, it's easier for them because they're just a bunch of superheroes and like spandex outfits, and they don't really require a lot of detail. With G.I. Joe, it's like, as I mentioned like in my previous live streams, like last year or even the year prior, I'm like, the vehicles are essential to G.I. Joe, just as important as army builders are. So without the vehicles, you're kind of like trapping yourself in a bubble of not making the line thrive as it can be. As much as we wanted 6-inch figures in G.I. Joe, again, the scale ratio from figure to vehicle is what was the bummer topic of last week's live stream on the HasLab, because the bigger the vehicle gets, the more money it's going to cost, and then you know, it's just like a whole money factor. So that's my only guess. Let's see here. NIGHTFORCE Vamp 2, Sigma 6 classified form would be insane. That's true too. I mean, there is a lot of characters to be going to, but you know, again, people would probably want airtight before we get like Dr. Talbot from Valor versus Venom. Stinger was fire, says Vil. Flaming Crow says they teased the Fang twice now. We'll get to that. I honestly don't think Hasbro is putting an effort into G.I. Joe like they were when it came out. I 100% agree. I 1000% agree with Alan Balcom with his comment. I would go deep into it, but I don't want to sound like I'm being too negative and nitpicky, but I agree. They definitely lost, for me, a bit of that pizzazz, what they were initially known as. I think 2022 to 2000, like early 2024 was like the peak of classified. I mean, it's still going strong right now, but again, there's a lot of collectors dipping and selling their collection because prices are just getting insane. So that was a Stinger. I thought that was cool. One of the latest pre-orders that we just had where it was the Cobra Claw. They showcased this one at Toy Fair, and I thought the figure that came with the Cobra Claw, the pilot, looks freaking awesome. I think she's probably one of the better army builders that we have out there. She looks freaking fantastic, but the fact that they gave us this type of sort of vehicle, it's, you know, it's great. And plus it was a Pulse exclusive, so we know that if it's on this type of size, that the G.I. Joe team is capable of giving us great vehicles for sure. Crimson says the live action movie figures was a great line, terrible movie, great toy line. But even then, the live action movie figures, they could have at least finished the wave, I suppose, because I know they made the official like roster, but you know, there was still like that blind master and then the other master in that movie, and they didn't even do that. Sendel Krishnan, what's up? Thank you so much for joining. 49er Brian, what's up? Thank you so much for joining as well. It's good to see you both here in the chat. Yeah, glad you guys are able to come. So I do apologize for zipping through these figures. I would love to talk more about these, but again, we have a lot of other vehicles to kind of discuss. So I'm kind of want to get these out of the way first. But the next one we have here is the Snake Armor. So this one is a very interesting one. I do want to share a slight nitpick that I have for this, even though obviously like nobody owns this one just yet. But when the G.I. Joe team revealed this one on their live stream, I would have gave the benefit of the doubt that it was a prototype, but they had 3 of these Snake Armor pieces like on the table, and they all seemed wobbly and flimsy. As great as this looks, I just hope that the quality is great, and I hope that it's like sturdy plastic rather than I hope it just doesn't feel or seem like it's cheap, if that makes any sense. Like, the detail is all great, everything about it is just fantastic. It's just when Lenny held it in his hand, the legs and the arms were just like wobbling all over the place, and I'm like, oh man, I just hope that those were still like factory versions, and hope that when this does release to collectors, it's more like it's more sturdier and more like the joints are more tight. And I didn't include it in this stream, but there's actually 2 other color variants of the Snake Armor, which is the blue version and the black version. So, or I think there was a red one too. So blue, black, and red, or is it no red? I don't know. Either way, it's one of those colors. So there's still 2 to 3 more color variants of the Snake Armor that I'm assuming will be released at some point within our time frame. So expect to see more color variants of these 2 at some given time. Vil the Great says the legs were suspect. I agree. See, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that. It was very too obvious for me when I was watching that stream. I was like, that's the first thing I noticed. Wobbly and flimsy would make it retro to the original. Oh, okay. Crimson says, there's no way we won't see a colored version of the Snake Armor. I 100% agree with that too. Benedict says, it's awesome, wouldn't mind an all golden one chromed out like in the Wrath of Cobra video game. Oh shit. A golden one, that's crazy. Migs Big, welcome to the chat, says Cobra has more awesome and advanced vehicles than the G.I. Joe team. I mean, the Joe team is more realistic, I suppose, and then the Cobras are more like far-fetched or just more intensely design vehicles. Zedburn says, and the figure QC has been a hit or miss, so there's reason to question it. Yeah, I agree too. Yeah, that's why like as excited as I am for this, I'm just also nervous that, I mean, I think so. Before I go on to the next one, it was just one of those things where I was like, I was expecting it to be like $100, but because it's like, I think they charge like $80 for it, I was like, all right, well, for that price point, and if it's like flimsy or wobbly, then maybe I shouldn't nitpick too hard. But then again, something is still sus about it, but it is what it is. And then the last one we have here is the Awe Striker, which comes with crankcase. And again, the rumor for this one is that it's technically going to be around $100, but again, that's just a rumor. Hopefully it's a lot less, because this thing is definitely not worth the same price as a Vamp or Stinger for that matter. But it's one of those things where a lot of people had an issue with the design of the Awe Striker because it didn't look as classy, I suppose, and plus people weren't too thrilled about the cage portion of it that's in the back, although I think it's stated that you can remove it or you can customize it to the point where the Awe Striker will look a little more classic, but the design of it kind of missed the mark just a little bit. And one of the funnier ones that I remember somebody said was, it looks just like it looks just like RC from Toy Story. So that's what made it funny for me. But otherwise, the Awe Striker is definitely a very iconic Joe vehicle. It's just price point wise, I hope that it's reasonably priced. Vil the Great says, I'm not digging this one. Migs Big says, I'm hoping that the Awe Striker is not a Pulse exclusive. It possibly, it could be. I mean, if the Vamp and Stinger were, then definitely, well, no, actually, no, Stinger was Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth. So yeah, I mean, chances are maybe it won't be. We'll see. The dinky little gun on top. Crimson says, I say closer to the Ferret price for the Awe Striker. But yeah, and on top of that, it's also like, you know, you're getting the character crankcase with it. So do people want crankcase? Sure, I'm sure it's a good, decent figure. It's just, this is a very classic, iconic Joe vehicle. So we're gonna, but before I move on to the next one, how do you guys feel about the color scheme for these vehicles? Because the Joe team obviously is going more into the olive greenish color, whereas the originals were like more military green, I suppose, like normal green, I guess. So personally, like, I don't mind, but sometimes I'm kind of like, man, I wish the color schemes was a little bit more, or maybe we could get more variant versions down the line. We'll see, but for now, I guess it is what it is. Flaming Crow says, I could see this being 75. Benedict says, I'll buy Crankcase separately on eBay, which is not a bad idea, because I feel like Crankcase would not be an expensive figure to buy whatsoever, because we know that people are going to buy multiples of the Awe Striker, but why would you need multiple Crankcases unless you're building, like, unless you're kit bashing, but I don't think you would need it. So the Crankcase figure will definitely be a lot cheaper. Alan Balcom says, anyone in here have an unopened once-a-man Cobra Commander they would be willing to trade for, like a Python Patrol Trouble Bubble, also unopened? If anybody wants to answer Alan, you can go ahead and hit him up on that one. 49er says, looks like the World Peacekeeper's vehicle. Nice. Benedict says, I like the OD green look. Migs Big says, I paid $200 on the Vamp because I didn't pre-order it when it was released, and now they are more harder to find in my country. Oh, what country are you from, Migs Big? Vil the Great says, colors are fine, they just need more vehicles. True. Crimson says, color is fine. Okay. Alright, so those are the vehicles for now that have already been released in classified form, with obviously the comparison of the vintage O-ring versions. So as you can see here, they've already knocked off a decent amount of vehicles that are essential to the G.I. Joe or Cobra line. But this is where the stream is going to get pretty rowdy, because we're going to start off small, and then we're going to make it towards like the bigger essential ones that people probably want more. But the first one we have here that I thought was more funnier to start off or kick off the stream is kick off the vehicles that we could see as Pulse exclusives or retail or even Big Bad Toy Store or Entertainment Earth, would be the Buzz Boar. So what do you guys think about this one? Tag Worm, welcome to the chat, says, "Yerp, I got both black and green hound. Yup, getting 2 Ostrikers. That's what's up." Migs Big says, "I'm from the Philippines." Shout out to Migs Big, who's all the way from the Philippines watching tonight's stream. Awesome, awesome. A Romo says, "What up, Shark? I finally got to see you live. I hope all is well and hope I did not miss much." Welcome, A Romo. It's good to see you, brother. We just started the official portion of the live stream where we're talking about the upcoming potential vehicles. Alan says, "RC Striker, I blame you." To point, it looks like RC from Toy Story. My bad, Alan. Zedburn says, "I thought you'd do the Pogo." I mean, this list doesn't have every single vehicle, but I did my best to include some hard hitters and some really random ones that kind of make you guys be like, what the hell? Let's see here. I have a 3D printed Buzz Boar, says Crimson. Russell says, "As long as the General Grievous can fit." Timothy says, "Decent. 49ers pass." Crimson loves the Buzz Boar though. Abromo says, "Hard pass." Mr. Magus says, "Pass" in capital letters. I mean, this vehicle was actually included in the G.I. Joe NES game for the Nintendo, if you guys haven't played it. So surprisingly, when I saw it, I was like, or when I played the game, I was like, holy shit, like that's the Buzz Boar. But it's cool to see at least that game included some iconic vehicles as well. But it's one of those things where, because it's smaller and it's not so much a popular vehicle to an extent, I could easily see this become a retail like Target and Walmart. But again, it's just, this would not sell very well, and the G.I. Joe team would lose mad money on this, to be honest. I don't know how many people would really want this, but I'm pretty sure it would you know, it wouldn't do that well. But yeah, so that's the Buzz Boar. It seems like not too many people are into it, so that's why I wanted to start off on a more of a funnier aspect. But Benedict says maybe. Flaming Crow says they could church it up and could be cool. Alan says, "I'm good with the olive colors, but I like the OG one too." Mix Big says, "The vehicle reminds me of that vehicle that the alien rode when they buzzboard the USMC based on the highways and films and Battleship." Vil the Great says next. Benedict says it's very Motu He-Man-esque. Zedburn says would like to upgrade it to get it to sell. The only way, yeah, upgrading is the only way to do it. And 49er Brian says, "Hit that like button." Yes, please hit that like button. Tonight's stream goal, actually that's good that 49er Brian says. Tonight's stream goal, let's lowball it. Let's put it 40 likes. If we can get 40 likes on tonight's stream, that would be very great. And I greatly appreciate that. So thank you for those that are going to help me get to 40 likes on tonight's stream. Tagworm says green all the way. Wilfredo says it would have been redesigned to make it more appealing. Looks too childish. Mr. Madgus says a lot of funny looking fantasy vehicles. But Crimson makes a good point, saying it's going to be red and black versus Crimson Army. Nice. Okay. So that's the Buzz Boar. So I guess we can say for now this is a hard pass, I suppose. The next one is a very interesting one because we have the Chameleon or the Swamp Skier for Zartan. Now we already have, I think 4 or 5 Zartan figures, so I'm not too sure how or where they would want to sell this, because there's absolutely no way that you would see this on the pegs at Walmart and someone's going to be like, I want a swamp skier. The only way that this thing is going to sell is they re-release Zartan in a color changing blue gimmick. Give us that retro Zartan, even though we already have a retro Zartan, but a Zartan that looks I don't know, not cartoonish, but just re-release that same retro Zartan, but instead make his skin turn blue, and then you give us the chameleon and swamp skier, or whatever you want to call it. So and so that's why I'm saying the only way that this would sell is you would have to throw in a blue colored Zartan. Yeah, so like a color changing Zartan, or even I don't know about an all blue Zartan, that would be just weird, but at least a Zartan where they could actually use the chemical formulas where it would turn blue in the sunlight, and not you would have to throw it in the freezer like the first version, the deluxe one that came out. But otherwise, I think this one is pretty decent for what it is. Mr. Madigus says if they sell it like a 4-pack, then they would sell. Actually, yeah, I could see a 4-pack then. That makes sense. Yeah, because I'm thinking of more of a single release with a figure, but a 4-pack, then that would definitely help out with the Dreadnoks, I suppose. So I think Mr. Madgus is kind of on the ball here. Vil the Great says this is something they can do. I agree. It just depends. You know, so I think either 4-pack, like Mr. Madgus says, or it would have to come with Zartan. Or at least another version of Zartan in order for this to sell. Benedict says it looks like a grasshopper. Yeah, it does. I agree. So then we have the next one, which is going to be a heavy hitter for a lot of you, because everybody, or I should say everybody, but a good amount of people are definitely wanting to have the Despoiler. We know that the Iron Grenadiers are probably one of the cooler sub-teams or sub-lines that are coming out in Classified right now, and they only gave us four characters. So let's see if I get this right. The Iron Grenadier, the Iron Grenadier Bat, Darklon, and shit, who am I missing? Shit, who am I missing? Oh, and Metalhead. So the only way that this one is going to be selling like hotcakes is you give the Despoiler with the gold dome Destro with the spikes on his shoulder and then the red cape. That would definitely have to be a Pulse exclusive. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of incomplete giving us a Destro without his Despoiler, but either way, the only way for this one to work is being exclusive to be with Destro. Otherwise, it just wouldn't make too much sense to me. Crimson says yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, it was Metalhead. Benedict says looks like something Batman would pilot. Yeah, I could see that. But Timothy says nope. 49er says I'm down for the Despoiler with Grenadier Destro. Agreed. Vil says I'd cop the most definitely, still waiting on that. Yeah, so like I said, the Iron Grenadier Destro with the gold head is going to be a very sought after one, because we haven't had a Destro upgrade in a very long time, so we definitely need that Destro to come out at some point. We're close because we already have a gold plated Destro twice. We have the Pimp Daddy Destro, and then we have the was it twice or only once? I think it was only once. So we only have the Pimp Daddy Destro, which is a gold-headed one. So if they can do that, then we know that Iron Grenadier Destro is definitely on the horizon at some point. 49er says I'm down for a Swamp Skier if it converts to a motorcycle as well. That would rule. I mean, that would be a lot of transforming, but hopefully something. Hold on. Oh, out of shelf space. Welcome to the chat. I forgot to read your comment. Says all the Nox would need one, make it an army builder. Agreed. But welcome to the chat. Out of shelf space. A Romo says it was once. Tagworm says yep. Someone offered a 3D printed swamp skier online for like $30. Not a bad price, and it looked pretty cool. Yeah, I want to give a huge shout out to Four Feathers, a great supporter on the channel. He gifted me a custom 3D printed, I believe, swamp skier for my birthday. I think it was last year, or was it the year before? It was one of those for my Zartan figure. But thank you, Four Feathers. I haven't seen you on the stream in a while, but if you're watching, then thank you so much for that swamp skier. Benedict says we're due up for a new Destro. It's been 5 years. Agreed. The last one we had was the retro Destro. Holonet says Hasbro isn't a fan of small personal vehicles except for Serpentor Air Chariot. I mean, I think it's possible as long as they know that there's a demand for it. It just depends on where the future of GIJOE Classified is heading. How would you have Grenadiers without Gold Destro? 100% true. This is an essential figure because you can't even have Destro without the Despoiler either. It's kind of like a hand-in-hand kind of, you know, both of these are, they needed to be together. Alan says, watch them offer up Destro with the Despoiler just to make fans have to buy it. Yeah, I mean, that's, I would pretty much agree that that would be the point of the Despoiler, because if they were to release it separately, then they know that they're not going to make as much money compared to them releasing the Despoiler with Destro. So I guess we can all agree that this is going to be a good one to have into the collection for sure, for those that collect the Grenadiers. Holonet says, I want the AGPs. Oh boy. The next one we have here is, I believe, called the Devastator. So I'm not too familiar with the Devastator, but I think it does look pretty cool. It's like a very miniaturized size mini tank with a bunch of freaking missiles everywhere. So I think this one would be pretty cool to have. If they utilize the color scheme just right, they could easily convert this to a 788 Devastator, or you know, associated with any type of character that would be just as good. Crimson says Lenny hinted that this is coming. I hope so. Timothy James says not bad. Vil the Great says Donkey. Crimson says I had this as a kid and I loved it. Zedburn says I don't remember this one. Yeah, so that's the beauty of doing this kind of stream, is that we could all look at vehicles, you know, because we all know about the more popular vehicles, but when I was going through all the list, I was like, man, there's a lot of vehicles that kind of like overlooked myself as a, you know, collector. So I'm like, okay, because I mentioned it like many times before that growing up, you know, my parents were more approachable to buy figures more than vehicles. The vehicles just took up way too much space, so they were like, either you get vehicles or you get figures, and I was like, well, I'll get figures hand down. So that's why I never really got much O-ring vehicles, which sucks, but the goal is to one day in the future, if I could afford it. 49er says pass. Benedict says nice but budget friendly tank. Mr. Madiga says, is it Arctic? I'm not too sure. This is one I wasn't too familiar with. Holonet says, I like the design of the Devastator. The 3-inch one is pretty expensive. Now we're back with Zoran with the Coastal Defender or nothing. Holonet says the box, question mark. Unfortunately, anything with tank track is going to be significantly increased in budget. I mean, we've seen rubber treads with even scrap irons, missile, whatever the hell that's called. So they could, I'm sure they could get this done too. It doesn't seem too far off to do it. Crimson says I only had 6 large vehicles as a kid and a lot smaller vehicles. I mean, that's still 6 more than I had and 6 more vehicles than I had. I only have an O-ring version of the Night Rhino, the Awe Striker that came with Pathfinder in 2000, and that's about it. I unfortunately did not own any other vehicles just because my parents were kind of strict on that. They were like, we're not getting you vehicles or too much space, but we'll get you figures instead. So I was like, all right. A good, you know, trade-off, I suppose. All right. So the next one we have here is the Devilfish. This would be a Joe vehicle. I don't know how many people would be interested in getting this one, just because we are still very shy away from getting watered characters in the Joe line, because we only have like Torpedo at the moment. We still need like other characters like Wetsuit and other, like other water type characters. So I think this would definitely be a good one to have. I'm not too much a fan of the orange color, but I have good faith that the Joe team would update this one very well. Let's see here. Out of Shelf says my Grail. Flaming Crow says yes. Zoran says get new parents. LOL. Mig says we need that because we have the scuba divers in GIJOE. Oh, I forgot about those. Yeah. We have the 60th anniversary scuba diver, and then we also have the 2 mass device scuba divers as well. So yeah, that works. Isn't Shipwreck considered a water Joe? I mean, yeah, I mean, if some people have like a issue with, going back and forth with like sailors, but if you want to have more like a scuba version, then, that could work too. Also, it doesn't really show here on my analytics on YouTube, but can someone tell me how many likes do we have here on tonight's stream? There's kind of a glitch going on, so I'm not really able to see. But I want to give a shout out to the over 50 something watchers on tonight's stream, so thank you guys so much for joining. There was a boat chase scene in one of the Police Academy movies that had a boat like this. There's even a chase scene in the Double Dragon movie from '94. All right. Out of Shelf Space says we have 30 likes. Okay, if we can hit to... Oh, what? A Romo says 39, though. I don't know how many we have. Now I don't know. Vil the Great says 42. Okay, so we made it to tonight's stream goal. Thank you so much for the 40 likes. I guess we're at 42 then. Rachel says, welcome to the chat. By the way, Rachel says, I'm showing 42. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you to everyone who got me to my goal for tonight. We hit 42 likes, or sorry, 40 likes. So that's freaking awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone who's joining in on the chat. Those that are watching that are not in the chat, you guys are just as important as those that are in the chat typing right now. So thank you so much for that. All right. So let's see here. Let's moving on from the from the Devilfish. The next one we have here is, let me hold on. Okay, this one seems to be a very important one because we had seen teases of this on the back of classified artwork for a while now, and that is of course the Fang. If they easily made the Trouble Bubble, then we know for sure that Cobra needs another air style vehicle, and of course the Fang is no exception to be anything but great. with the Cobra Claw and the Pilot out as well, and I think that's also a fantastic looking figure and vehicle. I think that this one would be definitely essential to the Joe team. And not only that, you could use string and hang it up on your ceiling and kind of give it more of an aerodynamic style posability for figures, and kind of, even though the Dragonfly would shoot the shit out of this thing, but it still would be very nice. Russell says, absolutely need this one. Alan says, I love the Devilfish. I had the OG one and it was awesome. I love to see a creative facelift for it. Man, you guys are so lucky if you had the vehicles, man. I wish I did. I had to use my imagination and like mix and match like some other knockoff vehicles for my Joes, and that was the beauty of being a kid at that time, when you just didn't care too much about having official products. But now as I got older and collected O-rings, I was like, man, I don't know how my childhood did it. Flaming Crow says, most definitely. Chris Yule says, open cockpit sucks. I mean, they could easily create a cover for it. I think they could easily add an attachment piece to it to kind of give it like a glass, you know, like a cover for it. But the thing is like, if the figure stands up while the propellers are moving, you literally get your freaking neck sliced off in half. 49er says Fang now. Zoran says Fang out. 6 for me says Tagworm. Crimson says, I have a custom 3D printed Python Patrol Fang and I love that vehicle. That's awesome, dude. Christopher Lane, welcome to the chat. I believe this is your first time here, hopefully. Says Fang, exclamation marks. Hell yeah. Russell says, I can already see the belt straps and the joysticks being movable in all directions. Hopefully the belt straps are going to be good quality and not break like the Hiss Tank or even the Dragonfly, because those are very brittle plastic or whatever the hell material that was. Timothy says, oh no, I read that. Oh no, he says unrealistic, the Fang, but classic. Alan says, what a great community we have here. I 100% agree. Thank you guys, man. You guys are all freaking awesome. Christopher Lane says, my father took me to see a movie when I was a child. We got there early and we went to Woolworth. I love Woolworth, man. That's when I found the original 1994 Automorph Power Rangers. I got the option of a movie or a Fang, and I got the Fang. Bravo, man, bravo. You did a wise choice. Crimson says, Fan's hobby is making a Fang vehicle with optional cover and injection molded. I mean, with the Fang, I feel like the Joe team would give it a little more justice, and I'm pretty sure they would update it enough to make it look very presentable. Whereas, as someone says, the open cockpit would probably be a little too odd to have in the, you know, I mean, they could re-release it as a retro form vehicle, but if you want like a modern version, like how the Fang or the Stinger and Vamp got like an update, then I'm sure the Fang could too. Because like a lot of you were saying, we have seen teases of the Fang in multiple classified artwork, so hopefully we will see this at some point. So beautiful. Fang is definitely a great addition to the line for sure. Next, this one is a little bit more on the lighter tones, as we have the Night Landing boat, I suppose. I assume that a lot of people are not going to get this, just because I'm pretty sure the G.I. Joe team is not going to do anything inflatable wise, but this looks cool. I mean, it has an engine. I mean, it has paddles, it's got guns, like, it looks cool. This is just one of those funnier things to have in your collection, but I think it's still pretty decent enough to have, just for if they have what is one of those Cobras, what is it called? There's a Cobra that has a blue uniform, and it's a watered character. I forgot the name of him, but yeah, I think he would be very ideal for that, for this type of little funny little boat. Yeah, I noticed that it's not inflatable because I saw the machine in the back, so I figured it wasn't. But I was assuming the inflatable part because of the GI Joe tracker figure, because his was inflatable. So I kind of just thought it was, but when I saw the engine in the back, I was like, all right, it's definitely not. But this would kind of go hand in hand with the porta potty was Trench Viper, even though this is more for water, but like color scheme wise, I can see this kind of going hand in hand with the another Viper. Taito says, I feel like Vala is making one. Oh shit, that would be insane. Christopher says the box art with Firefly in this was excellent. Ooh, I gotta check it out. Timothy says, I like it. It's cool for the eels. Was it the eel? It was the... Hold on, I gotta take the figure out. Give me a second. So yeah, for those that are watching, I kind of forgot what the name of this character is at the time. My mind is blanking, but I feel like this guy would be very ideal for this type of boat. I don't know why I'm blanking so hard thinking of his name. It's not Undertow, but I don't know why I'm blanking so hard. But for those that are the hardcore Joe fans, I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about. But this one would be a very cool character because he got like the whole mask, and then he's got the flippers. And I love the whole design of it too, and the little vest and everything, the grays and some reds. It's a pretty cool looking figure. I'd get the Night Landing only if it came with an exclusive figure, says Rachel. The only thing is I'm not sure which figure it would come with. Undertow. Okay, thank you. Rachel with the clutch response. Thank you, Rachel. Archangel Michael Mars says just subscribed. Shout out to Archangel Michael Mars. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and joining tonight's stream. I really do appreciate that. So thank you so much. Shout out to Archangel for this. Happy news. Good to have you on the channel. A Romo says, I would get this. This looks like a pic Valorverse posted on May 8th. Oh, I didn't see what Valorverse posted, so I'll check it out. Tagworm says, went to Marine Corps and my mother let my nephew demolish my whole collection. Didn't speak to her for 2 years. Holy shit. Holland says the blue figure is not Undertow. Then who is this? Oh, man, I'm blanking out so hard right now. I apologize, guys. I don't know. But anyways, they should have offered that with the version 2 Firefly. I have to check out the artwork for this then. But anyways, so that is the Night Landing. I thought it was a nice one to add into the collection regardless. The next one we have here is the Piranha. I don't know if anybody would be interested in the Piranha, but I still think this would be a cool addition. It's pretty small scaled, but you can see it has similar Hiss Tank decals. So I think, what is the copyright date? Damn, this one says... It just says H1. This is made in China. I think this was one of the 2000 figures. It's not like the original, like, because I know it was a 2000 one. It came in the 2-pack. I just forgot what the name was. Zoran says Swamp Masher or nothing. Oh man, I don't know about that one. But this one is cool though. I like this one just for the sake of it being more on the crimson side, and I'm sure that they could counter the yellows and not make it as vibrant. But this would be a very, very cool. My only gripe is not the vehicle, it's the fact that the Joe team, as in like the Hasbro team, they haven't really gave us enough water Cobra characters. So whenever I see like as cool as all the water vehicles are, the lack of water characters seems like they're not gonna give it to us like yet or anytime soon. Therefore, we're gonna have to wait probably a lot longer for this one to come out, which sucks, but I'm sure that at some point we will get it. But yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. Holland says, I love the Piranha, need to get more 3-inch ones. I mean, you're even lucky you have one. I can't wait to one day, once I finish my O-ring collection, like in terms of the figures, I can't wait to finally dip into the vehicles, and then I'm gonna end my collecting days with buying the USS flag, and then I can say I completed everything. Christopher Lane says, I could use another towed vehicle. True. Eels, the red divers, and the 2-pack, says Crimson. Okay. I mean, it's biting me in the ass. I don't remember his name right now, but it's okay. We'll figure it out in the next time. So that is the Piranha. Pretty cool one. The next one is another one of my favorites, and that's the Polar Bear. This is very essential to the Joe team for sure. And as I mentioned before, because the lack of Arctic characters, we really need to see them bust out more Arctic characters in order for us to get Arctic vehicles, because we've seen like the Avalanche and then the Polar Bear right here, and then the other Snowcat. You can't have these types of vehicles without more characters. Therefore, we need the Iceberg, we need Wind Chill, we need Cold Front, we need Sub-Zero, we need, like, I don't know, who else am I missing? Frostbite. And, you know, I mean, this was very ideal for any time in the G.I. Joe cartoon when they would go into the Arctic missions, and then you would literally see the Polar Bear used multiple times. It's kind of like, it kind of sucks in the G.I. Joe cartoon that whenever the Polar Bear was used, sure, there was like very minor episodes where Snow Job used it, but a lot of times you would see like Flint and Lady J with their little fur coats use it, or like other characters kind of use it, and you're just like, okay, but I want to see more like Arctic characters be a part of it. That's why, like, the part that bothered me as a kid, being a fan of G.I. Joe, was I kind of didn't like I didn't like seeing like characters like Flint and Lady J being part of like the Arctic missions, when I'm just like, you have established Arctic characters, give them an entire episode of them doing it themselves. You don't need like the main hard hitters to also be part of that too. Crimson says, do I own a Defiant? I do not. The Defiant and the Cobra Terror Drone, the USS Flag, are 3 that I don't have, which the USS Flag obviously is like $3,000 to $5,000. Defiant, I don't remember how much, and Cobra Terror Drone I don't have, but yeah, one day. Cool vehicle, says Vil. Flaming Crow says 100%. Rachel says Polar Battle Bear is a must. I agree. Russell says, how would you feel if they made this along with the Snowcat and HasLab if the price is acceptable? To be quite honest, I don't think the price would be acceptable by any means, because the Snowcat would be a big beast to begin with, and then you're adding in another vehicle with it, which would probably just boost up the cost and plastic. So I think having 2 vehicles associated in the HasLab would just be like insane on the wallet. But in a fantasy world, sure, I would love to have even characters like, oh, Benedict says like Blizzard would be cool. Avalanche, Snowstorm, Ice Storm, says Rachel. Yeah, so all great characters to add. Polar Battle Bear is awesome. I want the Arctic Joes plus like Duke, Lady J, Flint, Snow Bunny, Baroness, and Arctic Destro. I mean, who's not to say that the Joe team isn't going to give us Joe characters wearing like the brown coats with the fur on it, like the Arctic coats. They could still do that. Christopher Lane says, I am a Cobra only collector. I have all the current Cobra releases and have army build more than I can say, but the Polar Battle Bear will get me to buy Joe Snow Job. What can I say? Canadian. Man, you're lucky even in Canada you guys get good snow. Because of global warming, I haven't gotten good snow in a long time. Holland says, although Avalanche is part of the Battle Force 2000. Yeah, I always mix up Avalanche because Avalanche seems like somebody that can be a standalone, like in the Arctic style, but then he's also part of the Battle Force, and then I'm like, okay, whatever. Crimson Cobra says, okay, for the record, everyone needs to know that a Snowcat is only a tiny bit bigger than a Vamp. It is not a HASLAB vehicle. Yeah, so I think in my last stream last week, we talked about how the Snowcat and the Thunder Machine are two vehicles that were like in between. They're not big enough to be a HASLAB, but they're also not small enough to be like retail. Therefore, that's why I put that in the option last week's stream, that those two vehicles are like right in the middle. But a Polar Bear would be very ideal for sure. All right, moving on. This one will probably be a no-brainer, but would people want a recon sled? This one is kind of a little bit off the radar for me. I'm not too sure much about this. I guess it's okay, but for me, I would personally be like, it's a pass. I don't think I would want this. Vil the Great says, no, not really. Hollandnet says, no. Timothy says, I like. Abraham says, hard pass. Crimson says, take or leave it if NIGHTFORCE. Yes. I mean, maybe NIGHTFORCE, sure. Russell says, I'm in Houston. Snow is once in a decade event, and when it happens, it's not much. Damn. Benedict says, no, looks outdated. I mean, shout out to Russell, who's in Houston. But yeah, so I guess we can skip over this one because this one is just more of a little weirder vehicle, I suppose. I mean, sure, maybe someday down in the hard distant future, but for now, not really needed. But the next one we'll go into is the Sea Ray. What do you guys think of Sea Ray? Does this look like a vehicle you would want, or do you think the Joe team wouldn't make it this far? Because again, we're not too deep into watered vehicles in terms of classified skill, or sorry, watered characters, but we're not too deep into it, so Hollandnet says, I want a Sea Ray. Vil says, not bad. Rachel says, I'd pass on most of these small vehicles unless they came with previously unreleased figures. That would make sense. I mean, I feel like the only way that the Joe team can also profit on money is if they release these figures, or I keep saying figures, these vehicles with figures that they know are going to be extreme peg warmers, but in order to get a cool vehicle, you have to have like a figure associated to it. The ones that they know that are not really going to sell, but at least give us something like bang for the buck. A Romo says I would get this. Crimson says yes, but we need a shark to counter it. The original came with the sea slug. Alright, we're getting there. Benedict says maybe if it comes with a female eel, need more lady cobras. That would be really badass. I would love to see a female diver. Hasbro hasn't really dug into mid-80s vehicles yet. Yeah, they're still in the very early 80s right now, which is crazy. But it's not a bad thing. But like I said, we have a long way to go for sure. Archangel says, this may be off topic, but I would love it if they did a classified Deep Six. Archangel, which Deep Six would you prefer? The original first version, the Buzz Lightyear one, or the other version with the teal and orange helmet? Alan says, agreed, Rachel, and the price point would have to be set so low that would be hard to pass on. True. Which would remind me, because Sins, welcome to the chat. I know Sins was in the previous stream, but I forgot to say thank you so much for joining in the chat, Sins. So he says female eels, yes please. Archangel says the Buzz Lightyear version. Okay. I mean, well, while we're on the topic of Deep Six, I'm sure it's a no-brainer that we will be getting a shark at some point. Now, here we go. This thing is called Shark. I do SHARKNEWZ. I'm called Shark. How can I not get this? This is one of those instances where I'll be completely biased and be like, because it's Shark, it's like, dude, like, it's a no-brainer. This is 100%. Like, there's no way. Even if I'm not a fan of the Buzz Lightyear Deep Six version, if it's articulated well, then I would, you know, for sure get this. Just for the namesake. Vil says hell yes. Alan says I had a Sea Ray. Damn. But the this vehicle for sure, like Alan says, it would have to come with a figure. Yes, I agree. It would have to come with Deep Six. 49er says they have to do a shark. Of course. Benedict says they will do Deep Six justice. I hope so. Deep Six is one of my favorite characters. I just hope that they actually. Fun fact. I was editing my retro on my Retro Shark channel. I was editing my Deep Six, spoiler alert, review, the version 2 one, spoiler alert. And I was reading his bio, and the cool part is it says that Deep Six actually he's more of a loner. He doesn't really talk to the rest of the G.I. Joe team, and it also says that he also forgets, or he doesn't really remember anyone's code name, which I thought was pretty cool. So he kind of has like a darker backstory of just being more to himself, and he's not like a type of character that's associated to other characters. Therefore, I thought it was pretty cool to kind of read that new information about him. You would have to redesign Deep Six. 49er says pay SHARKNEWZ. Oh god. Yes to the shark, says Flaming Crow. Vil says they need to do a wetsuit. I agree. Russell says just think if Hasbro still did the selfie series, you could have one made of yourself. I would not do a selfie series because I refuse to throw my face to have them scan for them, even though we're all everywhere and I am on YouTube. But you know, for me to like generally stare at a screen like my face first, like 49er says we need a SHARKNEWZ figure with a shark. That would be freaking sick. Except I probably wouldn't use the name SHARKNEWZ on my shirt, but that would be really, really cool to have a shark figure. That would be so badass. I would love it. I would love it a lot. Now, what design I would prefer, I wouldn't know. I had somebody tell me that I look like, or even then when I saw the reveal, the classified clutch figure. It kind of resembled how I used to look in terms of hair and facial hair, but not so much anymore. Yes, it is me, Zoran. Alright, so let's move on from the shark because we still got a few more to go, but I want to hopefully get this through because Russell says, well, isn't it the selfie series? Yes, exactly. That's one of those things. I would rather find another way to do it, except I just feel weird of throwing my, like, taking a photo of my face and giving it to Hasbro. That's my only complaint. So that is the shark. I guess we can all 100% agree that this one is definitely going to be on the way, so or should be made, because it would be stupid for them to not do it. What do you guys think about the Silver Mirage? We've seen the Ram Cycle be released multiple times, but the Silver Mirage seems like more of an updated bike with a seater and some extra weapons and stuff. So I'm not too sure what kind of character you would want to associate with this one, but because of its color scheme, probably Psych Out or some more updated futuristic character with more maybe a brand new Joe character who's more like into the tech side, or somebody that's like there's another female character called like Data Frame or I don't know, like the female dial tone. I mean, either one of these, I suppose, because it kind of reminds me of like a techie bike more than a standard bike, and then you can just have like two characters kind of sit there. Benedict says, will it come with the DUI Duke? That's funny. A buddy gave me the Silver Mirage when I was a kid, says Holland Lucky. You still have it? Crimson says there are like 4 or 5 versions of the shark. Ooh. I gotta look into that then. I'd faint if they did a Tomahawk, says Archangel. Oh man, Archangel, then you'll definitely like the stream that I did last week where we talked about the Tomahawk. You should definitely check that out if you haven't. Alan says, I would buy one of these just to customize the artist shark logo on it, just to send you one. I mean, that would be freaking awesome. I just, you know, I don't know. I'm not worthy and deserving of that though. I appreciate that, Alan, but I don't deserve anything anymore. Or not that I ever did. Watch it come with a Super Joe. Oh, there was that one Joe, right? Yeah, was it called Super Joe, or that the one that has like chrome on it? I think it was Super something, or my mind is blanking right now. He had like chrome chest piece or something similar like that. Nice color, says Timothy. Zoran says, I bought the Mirage as a kid, always thought it was a wobbly mess. So I guess consensus is people are not too thrilled with this one. Super Trooper, yes, thank you guys. I appreciate those who come into the chat and help me out when I get a brain fart. It's really not easy talking live and remembering like every single Joe that's out there from the top of your head. But I appreciate you guys for helping me out. You guys are clutch. Not the character, but clutch. The reissue from 97 has a weird looking drunk Duke figure. I gotta look that up then. That would be awesome. So I think whenever they release this, if they ever release that drunk scale Duke, I'll call it the DUI Duke. As Benedict says. So that's funny. Super Troopers is a great movie, says 49er. Oh man. Okay. So the next one is a very popular one in the Joe community, and we have the Skyhawk. This, I know, I believe Ramen Toys has made their version. I don't, to be quite honest, like I see what Ramen Toys does, but I don't keep up to date with it because I don't know how they release vehicles that are similar to Joe's without getting in trouble, so it's like I don't keep too much up to date with it, but I do know that they are doing vehicles, and I believe they did a Skyhawk at some point, or probably in the past, I don't remember. But the Hasbro team definitely needs to do a Skyhawk, because I mean, it's freaking Skyhawk. This is 100% definite, like for sure. There's no brainer, no doubt. Great. Who's behind you? God, I hope it's nobody. Nope, hard pass on the Silver Mirage. Vil the Great says yes. Vil says yes, yes, yes. Ark says love this. Flaming Crow says without a doubt. Vil says literally my first vehicle back in the 80s. Timothy says super classic. Crimson says, oh, fans hobby. Shit, you're right. I'm sorry, my bad. Thank you, Crimson, for correcting me on that one. I think it's because I recently just saw Ramen create some tanks, so I just thought of Ramen right off the bat, but fans hobby. Okay, thank you. Russell says yes, yes, yes. Benedict says, man, the Skyhawk is really popular. I saw the fans hobby one recently, looks great. Okay, so it's fans hobby. Taito says, I don't think they did the Skyhawk, it was Toy Hobby or something, so it's fans hobby. 49er says, this is a no-brainer. I have the fans hobby one, it's awesome. Oh shit, good stuff. Rachel says Skyhawk is a must. I'd put lift ticket if they're not going to do the Tomahawk. Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned last week, the Tomahawk seems extremely too huge to do, so where they're going to utilize lift ticket, they would have to be in some sort of vehicle aspect for sure. I mean, it would be sad if they didn't do it that way. Thank you so much, Alan. That I really do appreciate that, man. That really does mean a lot. The only one of the reasons why I doubt myself that I'm not deserving of super chats or even like gifts or subscriber gifts is because that's a whole different story growing up. So imagine being a complete introvert growing up and going through like some rough shit in your life, and then you're like, you break out of that bubble to talk about figures on YouTube, and then it's like, sure, I'm not like a great YouTuber but like one of the best by any means, and I'm not popular in the Joe community by any means, but to be a voice in the community and being a voice that talks about figures with at least then it feels really cool for me to do that. Alan says Hasbro has been sending out promoting their 3D printed Skyhawks. Yeah, that's what makes it very dangerous, man. Like, that's scary stuff. Vil says, anyone getting the ads? I'm unfortunately not in control of those, so I don't know when they're actually showing it to you guys. It doesn't tell me when they're putting any up, so I apologize. Plenty of 3D printers out there doing wandering vehicles. I think it's because with 3D printing, people just want their vehicles. Like, you know, patience is one thing, but it's like you want to have these vehicles like ASAP, and the Hasbro GI Joe team is really, really stalling. And God knows, like, if Lenny, you know, leaves the GI Joe team, or, you know, if something happens to the classified line or whatever, like, who's gonna be as enthusiastic as Lenny, right? Like, might as well call it quits on the classified line if Lenny ends up leaving. But anyways, so that is the Skyhawk. We can all agree that this one is 100% needed in the collection. Okay, so coming up next, we have the Stiletto. I don't know if anybody would even want this, but it was just a cool one to add into the stream. I thought it was fine. Like, it's cool. It's red, Cobra-esque. But yeah, this is cool. It's one of those, I don't know, like I would like, to be honest, like I never grew up with this, so I don't really know. I never researched too, but when I saw it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna add this into the topic of the stream because it just looks cool that way. Crimson says not like it. I mean, I like it, but not necessary. Zed Burn says he had the goofy thing. Timothy says, I guess. Vil the Great with the funny comment says, what the hell is that? That's funny. But yeah. We'll just move on away from this one because I guess it's just not like something that everyone would probably want, so. No space figures yet. Stellar, Stiletto with Star Viper would be awesome. Oh damn, Rachel with the Star Viper? Oh shit. Rachel with the deep cuts. Oh man. Shout out to Rachel. HoloNet says it's nice looking ship. I have 2 3-inch ones, but with modern Star Vipers. It looks like a tunnel digger. It looks like that vehicle that Shredder uses in the Ninja Turtles cartoon where he's going down to the whatever the hell that planet Krang is from. Whatever that thing is that Rocksteady and Bebop and Shredder are all in. That driller. Looks was that the Cobra vehicle? Either Sea Slug or Sea Slug was the driver. Oh shit, I think I forgot about oh no, okay, never mind. I thought I forgot a vehicle. Okay, so we'll move on from this one. Planet X says HoloNet. Yes, thank you. Next we have, we're almost done though. We have the Stun, the Cobra Stun. Would you guys want a Cobra Stun? I feel like this would be a good one to have in the collection. Alan says Rachel continues to impress me with her knowledge. I 100% agree. Rachel should just take over my channel. I feel like you're the top dog here. The Buzzboar and the Mole Pod are tunnel diggers. I didn't incorporate the mole pod. Yes, says Flaming Crow. Oh my god, yes, says Timothy. Vil says yes, sir. Zed says this would probably be tight in classified scale. I agree. It's like very similar to like the Ferret, the ATV. I feel like they could easily like vamp it up to make it look really awesome. Yes, Stun's got like 3 of these, says HoloNet. More bikes the better. Stun is fire, says Vil. Crimson says this have to come to the line. I had 3 stuns growing up. One was a Python Patrol stun. Russell asks, is this the one that splits open? Question mark. Does anybody want to answer that question? Archangel says Motor Viper. Chad Blodjet. Hopefully I said that right. Welcome to the chat. I think this is your first time here. I don't know if you were here before, but he welcome to the chat. Says the Cobra Stun is the most iconic Cobra vehicle as far as I'm concerned. Rachel says if they made the stun, I would get it. Yes, says Archangel. So it looks like we have a very popular Cobra vehicle right here, which is the stun. So the fronts do spread apart, says Zed Burns. Yes, the front splits, says Crimson. Stun is essential. It splits. Yes, the 2 front pods split. Well, they swing out, says Zed Burns. Man, To be quite honest, like I knew this was going to be a popular one, but based on the comments that I'm reading, I didn't know it was going to be this popular. I mean, I knew it was going to be like one of the more essential Cobra vehicles, but yeah, I mean the fact that it's one of the hard hitters, then for sure, like you definitely need it. This is as big as the Snowcat, says Crimson. Oh shit, okay. So that's the thing, like growing up, it's like collecting G.I. Joes, it's like I knew most of the vehicles because I would read, you know, all these magazines, or even like or even in the comics, or etc., or just like see other friends of mine have vehicles. But like a lot of times, because I didn't own vehicles, it's harder for me to figure out the size and dimensions of these. But it's one of those things where it's like I'm aware of vehicles and all this, but because the lack of owning it makes it harder for me to do like size comparisons. But like unless you're talking about like, you know, the whale or other stuff, then that's like a no-brainer. But like stuff like this, or the shark and stuff, were vehicles I'm very well aware of, I just never owned them, so it's harder for me to, and I like to be transparent about that. The real question is, why is the stun not out yet? I'm sure they will, man. I'm sure they will at some point. I'm sure there's somebody from the G.I. Joe team watching this stream. Could put maybe 8 figures on this, says Zed Burns. Oh shit. Russell says, this was past my G.I. Joe days, but I might get this one. Damn. Crimson says, the stun is awesome. It can hold 10 characters on it. Jeez, that's beautiful. So that means it would have to be big enough to hold 10 classified figures. Oh god, that's insane. Holland says, the biggest vehicles I owned as a kid were the Desert Fox and Thunder Machine. Ooh. Archangel says, Rachel's word pressing skills are unmatched, knows where the home keys are. Nicely done. Hell yeah. Hasbro doesn't listen to fans. That's very true too. It's like, give us Night Viper. Sure, here's Frag Viper. I'm like, alright. Like that was a good call. Giving us Frag Viper instead of Night. Sure, why not? Alright, so let's move on to the next one. So since we know that stun is a very popular one. The next one we have here is called the Swamp Fire. I won't spend too much on this one because I just saw it and I was like, this looks interesting. But since we haven't even hit anywhere close to this type of vehicle yet in classified scale, I'm pretty sure we will not see this anytime soon. Yeah, so it's just one of those vehicles that I thought it was just like a fun little addition to the stream, but based on its color scheme and its design, and with Zartan Swamp Skier, it's like, okay, it has a decent mold and build to it, but it's just one of those, like, it's definitely not anything created just yet, because I feel like in order for them to do anything swamp related, anything Dreadnoks related, they would have to do motorcycles first and foremost before they get to other Dreadnought-esque vehicles. Crimson says it's a massive vehicle, 2-in-1 boat and helicopter. I mean, that would explain the propellers. That's cool. So then that would be really cool then. So it's like, I would say have the G.I. Joe team release this when they get to the deep cuts of the Dreadnoks, like the cousins, like Billy Bob and all those other characters. Like any of those other characters. Thunder Machine first. Yeah. So like Dreadnought motorcycles, the Thunder Machine, and then we can hit into this. But for now, it seems like they haven't even got there yet. But yeah, so let's move on from the Swamp Skier because I don't know. I feel like we're too far-fetched from this one, so no need to milk the cow on this one just yet. So the next one though is going to be a hard hitter for sure, because you can't have we are very aware that 3 of these figures are coming out supposedly, and one of them is already out. We have Sergeant Slaughter's Triple T tank. I mean, how can you have Sergeant Slaughter without his tank? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, an easy call. Definitely one of those vehicles where we know that MERCER is coming out with Sergeant Slaughter and the 2-pack, and we know that due to listings or that are coming out soon, that Taurus and Red Dog are on the horizon. Therefore, how can you not give us the Triple T tank? And we're about to have 3 versions of Sergeant Slaughter. Therefore, this tank is extremely essential to have in the classified scale. Hopefully at some point. Timothy says nice. Vil says surprising hasn't come out already. That's true too. I think it's because actually I'm not sure. Crimson says, would you prefer having the Warthog or the Triple T? I would say Triple T for sure. All good, Russell. We are about 2 more away from finishing, so you're not going to miss too much, but it's good to see you, Russell. Holland says, not a great vehicle, although I had the 3-inch one as a kid. Holland had everything at this point. Alan says, yes, please, I had this well as a color-changing mimic. Ooh. So yeah, I would assume this one is definitely freaking great. It's definitely a good one to have in the collection for sure, and especially because again we have the original Sergeant Slaughter, we have the Mad Marauders one, and then we have the new one coming out with MERCER. No brainer to have. Sergeant Slaughter needs his damn vehicle, and I believe this is the vehicle he came in when he fought like all 600 bats in the Joe cartoon, where it was like Sergeant Slaughter versus like 20 bats, which was insane. So yeah, this was the vehicle that he came in, which I thought was interesting. But Abram says a must-have shark. Yeah. Maybe the Triple T is not for everybody, but if you're like a Sergeant Slaughter fan, and if you're a huge fan of the Renegades, or a fan of just having a nostalgic vehicle that you grew up with, then this one definitely is a good one to have. Crimson says there's a NIGHTFORCE version of it too. I mean, I have no doubt that they would do variant versions of these vehicles as well. So that's why you have to give and take 2 versions or even 3 of each vehicle, which will spread out the vehicles for like years and years to come if Classified ends up lasting that long. Alan says gimmick. Rachel says, considering the shelf space, I'd take the Triple T, but never had the Warthog. Yeah, I mean, the Warthog is because I have... The Warthog is very similar to the Night Rhino that I have from 2000 that came with Dusty. Therefore, because I never owned the Triple T, I was like, I'll go for this one just because... Again, you have to remember, me growing up, like, I have like over 200 O-ring figures, but I had to mix and match random other vehicles that I grew up with because, again, whenever I had the option to buy a figure, my parents were like, either get the figure or get the vehicle. And whenever they said or, I was like, I had to get figures instead. The tank treads would have to be fully functional in order for me to get one. Yeah, I mean, the treads remind me of Scrap Iron's missile drones, so I think that would be very essential. And if they can do it with that smaller thing, then I'm sure the Triple T would be pretty good to have it there too as well. So yeah, so we know this is a good one to have. But the next one, so we'll say this one's essential, so this is a no-brainer. But the next one we know, I'm going to briefly talk about it, is because it's basically the Vamp Mark II. It's the Holland that says like the vehicles from the Corpse line. Yes, I have like 3 random vehicles from the Corpse line, and this random inflatable boat, this other knockoff Vamp, and these other random more. You know, like in CVS, or like other toy stores, there's like those Maisto like motorcycles. I also use those for my Joes for like crazy ass missions. So I guess you can say when it came to vehicles, I was very not blessed, but I did what I could. But when it came to figures, oh man, like I was having a field day on that. So I won't spend too much time on this one, but we know that with the Vamp already out, we know 100% that they will probably give us a Vamp Mark II, which is basically just a brown, like a brown version of the Vamp. So I'm pretty sure that they'll just remake it, and plus it looks pretty cool. You can't go wrong with it, and I would just throw in a Dusty figure in there. Scrap iron drone treads don't work. They're fake treads. Really? I thought they worked. Oh, they don't move. Okay. Alright, that makes sense. I had so many corpse bikes growing up. Yeah, I mean, I have like 2 or 3 as well. So I guess you can say when it came to vehicles, I had more, for some reason, I had more corpse, Leonard vehicles than regular GI Joe vehicles, which I thought was weird because yeah, I'm like, why didn't I just get regular Hasbro ones? But whatever. Zedburn says a tan clutch. Yep. But yeah, so I'll just skip over this one just because it's a very easy call to know that a Van Mark II would be on the way. Very similar to how the Snake armor had like 3 other colored variants or 2 other colored variants, and then yeah, so like, you know, like other colored variants of like vehicles that we were talking about, whether Cobra or Joes. So the last one I want to go over is the Cobra Wolf, which I believe came with Ice Viper. This one is a really cool looking vehicle. I do not it looks big enough to not be a Pulse exclusive, but it also looks small enough to not be a HasLab. I think it was Ice Viper. Was it Ice Viper? But yeah, so this one is really cool. The figure that comes with this vehicle, he comes with like size, and I was like, it looks really great. And plus the figure has like more of a red mask and like a white outfit, which looks really cool. So it's kind of like another version of Snow Serpent, but just more of an army builder, like a Cobra Trooper, but just like in red. So if you utilize, so if you just pretend like the Cobra Stinger driver but in white, I think that would be pretty cool. A Romo says, yes, I had it as a kid. Rachel says the corpse was more affordable option. They have some cool vehicles too. Well, thank you for not making me feel as bad, Rachel. Holland says I had the Tiger Sting, which is basically the Vamp MK2. By the way, did I say shout out to the Nerd Alert? I'm sorry if I didn't say welcome to the chat, Nerd Alert. My bad. I deeply apologize. I just saw your name and I was like, oh man, I remember you typed something like way above back then, but I forgot to say hello. It came with a Shoemaker Viper. I would love to have a wolf. Yes, Ice Viper, says Holland. Okay, so yeah, I do like Ice Viper. He looks really cool. And he comes with a helmet and 2 sides. I'm like, alright, that's cool. I would love this. I hope we get a female driver would be really cool. This is fire, says Vildegrate. Snow Wolf. A Romo Nerd Alert says love the blue canopy. Yeah, it's very like icy looking. I love it. What is it? Something for Dusty to drive. Oh, something for Dusty to drive, says Alan. Crimson says Holland, I did to just perfect the tiger string. Timothy says no. Chris Yule says Snow Wolf is the shit. I agree. Rachel says I have the 50th anniversary wolf still boxed and unassembled. Oh wow. Nerd Alert says no sweat, homie. I'm on the road working late. Love you guys. Love you too, man. I'm glad you guys are able to join the stream. But yeah, this one's a cool one. Size wise, I'm not sure where it would fit in, but I think it would be like it just really upsets me that they're not basking in on Arctic characters. They really need to like get more Arctic characters out there. Hopefully at some point. But yeah, there's like, again, the Arctic sub team is like probably my favorite after like Battle Force 2000, but still, even Cobra Snow Troopers and stuff, like those are just, I just love the snow as being a January baby. It's definitely a good one to have for sure. HoloNet says, I have 4 50th Wolves battle pack. I love those battle packs. Oh shit. I mean, the 25th and 50th, or even whatever the other anniversary figures, those are some really, really good figures too. But that was when I was kind of like off of G.I. Joe because I had the O-rings that I was content with. We need Snow Cobra Commander and Han Solo jacket. Yes, that's very true. I'd get the wolf. That looks cool. Yeah, it's really awesome. Price point, I don't know, but I'm sure at some point we would get it. Well, on that note, I'm going to end the stream here because there's a lot of that was a lot of vehicles to go over, and I apologize for the earlier stream getting canceled, but I hope this stream wasn't too fast. I would have loved to kind of go more deep into it, but since I lost like 30 minutes trying to restart the computer, it was an epic fail on my part. But before I conclude the stream, I do want to say that we are about less than 14 days away from YOJO June, which means I still have a few more Road to YOJO June videos, SHARKNEWZ videos to come out within the week and next week, and then I still have one more live stream next week before we head into YOJO June. So I don't have any topics for that one yet, but we will definitely do a YOJO June countdown and hopefully talk about some Hasbro stuff, because hopefully by next week we should have a an indication of what to expect for YOJO June. The Hasbro team should post something about it. Otherwise, hopefully in the next few days, if not next week at most, unless they just cancel YOJO June, that would be freaking hilarious, but hopefully not. But yeah, so we will definitely do a cool YOJO June video, or Road to YOJO June stream next week, and then we'll have a lot of fun with that one. Again, we'll figure out what the topics, but thank you to everyone who joined tonight's stream. I appreciate and love everybody that was in the chat. I appreciate everybody that was watching tonight's stream as well, even if you weren't in the chat. And thank you to my new subscribers, and thank you to those who helped tonight's video get to 40 likes. I appreciate that. And thank you for spending your Tuesday nights with me. It was very fun. I enjoyed talking about the vehicles and learning new things about it. But before I leave, let me just read a few things from the chat. It says, thank you, Benedict. Thank you, Crimson. Rachel says, wait, my all-time favorite vehicle, did a video on my favorite if you're interested. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'll check it out, Crimson Cobra Commander. If you can post a link on any one of my videos, I'll definitely go and watch it from there. Back in the day, the His Vamp is all Striker Stun box at the same price points up their classified team, which vehicles get supersized. Very true. So we'll see how the all Striker is priced once we get an idea of that. Out of the topic, deep cuts for next week, says Benedict. Ooh, interesting topic. YOJO June has sucked for the last 3 years. I think last year was a little bit underwhelming, but 2023 and 22 was really, really good. Thank you, A. Romo. 63 likes, freaking awesome. Beautiful. Good night, says Crimson. Alan, Rachel's on point with it. I agree. Okay. So I want to thank you guys all for watching. Stay tuned for more SHARKNEWZ videos in the week, and I'll see you guys all next week on another Road to YOJO June live stream, and then we'll be entering YOJO June, which will be all month long, action packed, hopefully. So we'll see how that's going to go. Thanks again. I appreciate everybody for joining. Enjoy, have a great weekend, hug your loved ones, and I will see you guys all in the next live stream. And again, shout out to everybody that was watching and everybody that was in the chat, and thank you for engaging and interacting. I appreciate it.